Yeah. So did you and your wife, like, so you basically used marriage coaches then? Is that how it came to be? Or
So now it's okay. So do you want to, I can get into my story, like,
yeah,
kind of where this all started, where this all like began, right?
I guess
Um,
that's what I'd like to dig into because I mean, for
yeah,
that's kind of part of our story. Yeah, let's hear your story.
absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So let me think. So in 2011, I started traveling a lot for work, a lot. And before that, I would say, from we got married in 2001, right? Yeah, we got married. Don't let my wife see this. No, we got
Okay.
married in 2001. We got married in 2001, and we both grew up in church. I come from like a line of pastors, my grandparents, my uncles, and all that. And my wife is actually a preacher's kid, right? So we both grew up in church. We both had this faith, and we got married, and we had I would say, the picture marriage that you think of, the average marriage that you think of, right?
Yeah.
You get married, you get your career, get a house, have some kids. Like, we kept going to church, we doing all that. And if you would have asked me back then, I would have 100% said like, 100% I'm a Christian, no doubt. So then fast forward through our average marriage, nothing was bad. People always ask me like, was there something, in your marriage that drove you to where my story like kind of starts, right? I look back and there's really not. But in 2011, so I started traveling a lot for work. So, deploying here within the United States and then coming back home and going, being gone for months at a time, a couple of weeks at a time, coming back. And during that time, I started to really compromise my core beliefs of my walk with Christ, right? And it wasn't, I would say now my walk with Christ, or then my walk with Christ wasn't rooted and grounded. It wasn't very strong. And so I started to do these little compromises, right? And traveling more and more, like maybe I would stay out with the guys past dinner, right? Have a couple drinks, kind of stay out, and then just go back to the hotel room, like no big deal. And then that kind of progressed to stay out a little longer. And then I get home, or not home, but get back to the hotel. And then I started looking at stuff I shouldn't be looking at, right? Like I started diving into that world of porn and started kind of going down that rabbit hole. In my head, I was justifying, as someone that knew the Bible. I would say, knew, I'd do the air quotes, right? Because I never really delved into it and really understood scripture, but someone that kind of knew enough to be, dangerously ignorant. I would start twisting and starting kind of like justifying my sins of what I was doing, right? I wasn't cheating on my wife. I was doing this instead. Like, this isn't a big deal, right? And so that just kind of kept progressing. Then when I started going out, I started staying out later. And, man, if you're listening to this, watching this, and you don't think that there is an enemy out there that is truly trying to get you and knows everything about you, then you're already behind the curve. Because I would go out, and then all of a sudden I started noticing women notice me, right? Like it's the slippery slope of being a male, right? And having that pride. It's like, man, I want people to notice me, right? And that's the pride the Bible talks about, like, get rid of that stuff. I want people to notice me. I want this to happen. So I started feeding that, and I just started noticing these women notice me. Then that progressed a little bit more. And then next thing I know, I'm crossing that line that, everything else is fine. But once you cross that physical line, and you're married, like that's it, it's over, right? I had an affair on my wife. I had multiple affairs, and I hid that this is like a compressed timeline too. So this wasn't years. This all happened like in that 2011 timeframe. And my full timeline is a little goofy, and it's probably because I'm a dude, but like, I have horrible like track on, oh, it was X amount of months, or my wife could tell you
Sure.
100%, like this is how it went down, right?
She knows. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I kept this up, and I would go home and just, be the dad, be the husband, go to church, do all those things, still go to work, whatever. Everything was fine. But I was holding on to the secret, right? I was living two lives. And I kept doing this. And then one day my wife found out when I was gone, and I get back, and she's like, you're out, like you're moving out. I don't know where you're going to live. You need to find a place to live though. Like, you're not living here. So I get, kicked out of the house, move my stuff to a shed, like a, storage shed. And I start just living with other guys that aren't going to speak life into me. They're basically not encouraging me, but they don't care. Right. And, it's just the circle of people you surround yourself with is so important, like so important. So I just was bumming off couches and doing my thing. And in my head, I was like, well, this is the ultimate thing you can do in a marriage of distrust. And so my marriage is over. I'm thinking divorce is already here. Right. And so we start going through that process, and I just keep living the life I want to live. Like I just keep, going out, doing whatever I want with whoever I want, traveling wherever I want, like just living that life, pretending that I don't have a family. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, well, my family's going to be okay because, the court, like, we're going to figure this out, right? That's the ignorant side of what I was doing. So, or there was a lot of ignorant side, but that was one piece, right? But one weekend, I'm driving back from another weekend of just, debauchery, right? Just ridiculousness, feeding my flesh, doing whatever I wanted. And I'm driving back. And as I'm driving back, listening to whatever on the radio, right? Furthest away from God that I feel I could be, just running and ignoring all that. And it was like God spoke to me. Well, it wasn't like he did, but it wasn't this verbal thing. This wasn't the clouds splitting open and the sun shining down or anything like that. It wasn't these things. What it was this, it was so loud, but it was, not audible. And I pull over the side of the road and he's just like, listen, you have two choices. Like, here's your fork in the road. You can keep going down the path you're going, and it will lead to death. And at that moment, you read the Bible and all sin leads to death, and eternal death. But at that moment, it felt like that imminence of like, man, this is it. This is the final choice, right? We serve a God of second chances, a God of multiple chances. But this moment felt like this is it. And the next thing he said was like, or you can turn around and come back. But it wasn't, you can come back to me and your marriage is saved. It wasn't, you can come back to me and your kids will be great. Like, it was nothing like that. There was no promises like that. The only promise was, you can come back to me. So I sat there on the side of the road, just bawling. And clearly I made the choice to come back to him. That's why we're right here. Yeah. But I didn't know what to do next. And so I called Lisa and I was like, is there any way we can work this out? Like, is there, any sliver of a chance? And she said yes. And then this long road, very long road to full restoration in our marriage. And also in me, all those hangups stay with you, right? So it's not like, she was expecting me to walk through that door, perfectly changed. God, talked to him like, this is what's going to happen. He's made this commitment. And it wasn't like that at all. It was chipping away, getting rid of everything, slowly. So that was the very short of our testimony, my testimony. The backside of that I didn't know was happening was my wife, so strong spiritually. And she would tell you she wasn't at that time, but at that time she grew so much closer to God. She was praying for us. She was praying for me, but most specifically, she was praying for my life, not necessarily that our marriage was going to be great again and all these things. It was just mainly like, Lord, have him come back. So yeah, it was an eye-opening experience, and that happened in 2011, and life-changing. And the challenge of, you can't run away from God, right? He's always right there, no matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you've done. He's always right there behind you. And so making that choice on the side of the road, this long road to recovery. And I wasn't addicted like substance wise. It was just this long road to recovery of getting rid of porn. There would still be like text messages that would come through, like trying to deal with all those things, and then rebuilding trust in our marriage. And that was huge, and it was hard. And we're not fighters, like, yellers. We don't yell at each other, but during that time there was fights, and I still don't feel like I fully had let go of everything. It was that that detox process. And so I still had anger, but yeah, I mean, that was, gosh, what is it? 11 years now? Well, no, 12 years now. Right.
Yeah.
So it's been
so glad to hear that you guys, I'm so glad to hear the story in the sense that you came out of this, like, and hopefully it inspires other people. I kind of want to go back to the fact that, like, because prevention is going to be like more important than, right, just recovery. Like, if you're in it, I want to talk about that here in a minute, but yeah, you said, you compromised your core values in just small ways. And I imagine, like, and then that you mentioned something like that's kind of that slow fade. That's what it all just starts with. Like, if you're sailing the ship, right, you're supposed to fix your eyes on Jesus, the author, perfecter of your faith, and you shift it just a little, that one day, well, a year from now, you're actually way off course. It's better to come back. And then I love that you said, we serve a God of second chances. And there's something beautiful, like, about his name. Like, it's, to me, one of the most attractive things. And a lot of people don't really talk about his name in the sense of, like, in Exodus 34, he tells Moses, yeah, I'll show you my glory, but I'll also tell you my name. I'll declare it before you. And he says, I am Yahweh, Yahweh. I am gracious. I am compassionate. I am slow to anger. I am abounding in loving kindness and truth. Like, I'll show mercy to 1,000 generations to those who love me. I forgive transgression, iniquity, and sin. Everything you could possibly do, he forgives. But he says, I will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, though. And then And like that, to me, there's that beauty in his name. Like he's drawing you
Oh,
back because he is compassionate. He's not and slow to anger and merciful. And he wants better for you than you wanted for yourself. And he's smarter than us, right?
yeah, absolutely.
What he's written in his word is just so powerful. And there's when you were talking, I'm on a Proverbs a day kind of thing. So it's
Mm,
January 5th. So I read Proverbs 5, and you were saying a couple things where I was like, God's always watching. Well, Proverbs 5:21 says the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he watches all his paths. Like you can't get
mm,
away. Like he is
no,
there. He's watching you take the good road or the bad road. If you like that clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. If you want to watch the entire interview, click right here.